because of the people that are out there, the sons and the fathers of these wonderful guys.
Commissioner, your voice caught when you had to talk about the fact that you thought you'd never see a day like this with military degrees of high ranking.
It's, I just don't know how to explain it. Like I said, these are not just employees of a commissioner who arrived from IBM to try to manage a department. This is the voice of a commissioner who loves these guys at every level and who works with them, has worked with all of them at every level, from the union's perspective, fighting with them in the union and now fighting with them in management. Seems like I've been fighting with these guys for 15 years and I love them. I absolutely love them. These people, the three today, the fact that we couldn't go to Father Judge's funeral has got the mayor and I all twisted, but we couldn't. Just fortunately, there was a press service for him last night, and we were able to pay our respects to him and to all the other Franciscan friars that have been so wonderful to our department.
All right, the mayor's comments and the fire commissioner's comments coming there as they attend the funeral of New York Fire Chief Peter Gandy. We are going to take a brief respite from our discussions here and listening to the voices of America on this tragedy as we go to Aaron Brown in New York for an update on what's going on. And we will return here in just a few minutes and continue on. Aaron?
Bobby, thanks. And just watching the mayor, I think New Yorkers know this. I don't know if people outside the country do. It's actually been a very tough year for the mayor. He's battled prostate cancer, and this year he's also been involved in a very messy public divorce, and that would be uncomfortable wherever you were, but in New York, where the two tabloids battle over such things and who can come up with the most detail on such matters, it's made it especially difficult. It has tended to diminish in some sense, I think, how people have viewed the mayor, but I doubt there are many people in this city, even people who have a fair amount of difficulty with Mayor Giuliani, who would not say that he has looked anything but diminished in this week. He has been all over town, all over the area, accessible always, and generally getting very high marks for his handling of the crisis of his administration, which is coming to an end. Tuesday was election day here, in fact, to begin the process of selecting his replacement. Perhaps this has been mentioned, I'm not sure, but it's the first time I've seen it, so let me pass it along. The president will meet at some point on, I was going to say Monday, now I'm not sure it's Monday, but in any case, there's a plan for the president to meet with the executives of the nation's airlines. Nation's airlines were having a very difficult time before this, in fact. Obviously, this has been a devastating week for them, and the prospects moving ahead aren't very good either, and there's a lot of concern about their financial stability. Continental's talking about laying off 12,000 people and cutting its flights back, once it even gets to whatever normal is going to be, cutting its regularly scheduled flights back by 20%. Northwest Airlines saying much the same thing. Other airlines are having trouble. The House last night began work on a bill that would make direct cash payments of about a little more than $2 billion to the airlines, plus another $12 billion in loan guarantees. The Transportation Secretary is saying that they're quite concerned about the financial stability of the nation's airlines. It's a hugely important industry, and while Wall Street will get back to business as normal Monday morning, and in fact they are testing the systems and they are getting encouraging news that the electronics, the telecommunications and the like down on Wall Street is working fine. So that business will get back to normal, or whatever normal is now, on Monday. It's going to be a long time before the airline industry gets back to anything approaching normal. And that is just one, but it is a very serious economic impact issue. This thing is not simply about the damage done that's going to be extraordinarily expensive to rebuild and the rest, but you have going forward serious economic questions that need to be addressed, and none of them is going to be cheap. And the mere notion that Congress is talking about a $2+ billion direct payment to the nation's airlines, that is cash to them to keep them going, gives you some idea of how serious that situation is being seen, certainly by the representatives of the airlines who are working the halls of Congress to try and get some help. The administration has taken no position on that yet. Martin Savage, down on the streets of New York where the recovery operation goes on. Marty?
Aaron, obviously we've been focusing on the rescue effort, we've been focusing on the victims, and they are first and foremost both those topics in the minds of everyone. But I wanted to show you some other people who are victims here as well. If you look off on the corner that is just underneath the sign advertising about roses, that group of people, there have been people lining up there all day long. These are people that are local residents, people that live inside the exclusion zone immediately in the area surrounding what used to be the World Trade Center. And there are people that no longer have a home. Their homes still exist, their apartments still exist, but they cannot live in it. They have all been evacuated. And what they're waiting for is that they will be given the opportunity to be escorted to their apartment. And under escort, they have 10 minutes. 10 minutes to grab whatever it is they think they need, whatever they believe they need to carry on. And that's it. And they leave. You see many of them coming down the street with whatever belongings that they could grab in that short amount of time. And all day long, people have been coming and going, doing that. It's likely that they will be out of their apartments for quite some time. And joining me to talk more on that subject and others is Michael Beeman. He is with FEMA here in New York, in the New York region. And that is, of course, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Michael, thank you for being with us.
No problem.
And let's talk about these people who have been displaced. There is assistance that can be available to them.
They very easily could be eligible for federal assistance, for rental assistance. If they've been displaced from the apartments down here because of this disaster, they are eligible for federal assistance for that. There's a lot of categories people are eligible for, such as medical assistance, funeral assistance, the rental assistance that we talked about. And there are a lot of other categories. They simply need to call a 1-800 number that we've been putting out. It's 1-800-462-9029. And once they call there, it's a seamless process. They provide the information, they're given a case number. From that era on, it's tracked by that case number as to what their eligibility will be. And then they'll start receiving funds from the federal government.
How quickly, though, will they get the money?
Actually, in some of our disasters in the past, we've been able to get checks out as quickly as 3 days after we've started taking in the information. It depends on the category of assistance that they're applying for.
And that number, once more, just so
Is
people can...
1-800-462-9029.
Let's talk about something else. We have spoken a great deal about communications that people had through those cellular telephones, many people who were inside the building.
Right.
Now, through technology, it's sort of, you're trying to work it in reverse, in that you are trying not necessarily to communicate with the individual, but to their cell phone. Tell us how that is working.
Lucent Technologies came forward to us sometime in the last day or two and said, we have the technology to be able, if you can get us the numbers and send a signal to them, we'll be able to go ahead and figure out where those cell phones or pagers are. So we were asking anybody that knows of anyone that's missing and they have a cell phone number or a pager number for them, or some other communication device. Some pilots, I understand, are able to have communication devices, is that they call to that number and they give us those numbers that they know of so that we can have that signal sent to it. So Lucent give us some idea where we should be looking for those people that are still missing. That number is 877-348-8579. And we really appreciate that you all are getting it out nationally, because these numbers could be anywhere in the country that somebody knows of somebody that's missing and has a cell phone or a pager that they're used to calling. So we'd appreciate getting as much of this word out across the country.
Give us another idea of some of the other things that FEMA is directly involved in here.
Well, since FEMA is the agency responsible, it has the kind of the orchestration of all the other federal agencies of drawing in whatever resources there. I know that Health and Human Services is deeply involved. They have the disaster mortuary affairs teams in here. They also have the disaster medical assistance teams in here. The Coast Guard is deeply involved right now because, of course, they're only allowing so many ships into the ports, about an hour and a half apart before the ships come in and make sure all the paperwork's in line. But there are a never-ending list of federal agencies that are directly involved in this operation and trying to help this community recover from it.
Michael Beeman, we know that we will be hearing from FEMA and probably from you over the next days and weeks. Thank you very much. We wish your organization
Thank you
good
very
luck.
much. Appreciate it.
You might have heard the applause there, and you might think it's a bit out of place, so close to the proximity of the World Trade Center here. But actually, this being a Saturday afternoon, many people have been drawn down to this particular point. And each time that they see firefighters and rescuers coming out, every one of them they treat to a round of applause. Gives you the sense of the feeling here on the streets, even as close as we are to what used to be the World Trade Center. Aaron?
Marty, thanks. My eye is drawn behind you to that. I'm sure you know what I'm looking at. That string of American flags that line the street behind you. Has that been there for the last couple of days, or is that new today?
Flags have been appearing down here recently. Within the past number of days, it's been growing. Not just flags that are on buildings, flags that are on people. We were over on the West Side Highway there. There was a gentleman there that bought a huge bolt of cloth with the American flag emblazoned all over it. And what he was doing was cutting out little flags and handing it to each of the firefighters and police officers and pinning it onto the backs of them so that as they go in to do their job, that the American flag would be with them and be worn proudly.
This is just as you were saying that Verizon is a phone company here. A truck went by with a flag on it. We were coming in. We saw cabs with flags, cars on the highway with flags. Thank you, Marty. Martin Savage down on the ground there. One quick note, I want to go to the Pentagon. I came across this a moment ago, just a sense of how jittery things are in the country. A man was taken off a Delta Airlines flight, Boston, that would be Boston Logan, and you see the significance there, to Atlanta for what's described as suspicious and rowdy behavior. The man was, quote, vaguely Arab looking, end quote. I don't have a clue what that means, to be honest, and kept changing seats in first class. It's very jittery there. It's very jittery, period. We saw a little bit ago, about an hour or so ago, some new pictures of the Pentagon and the damage that was done there. We want to show you those again and talk some about the effort to put the Pentagon back together. Our Pentagon correspondent, Jamie McIntyre, joins us now. Jamie, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Aaron. Well, Pentagon officials today, specifically the manager of the Pentagon renovation project, because as you know, the Pentagon is undergoing a 10-year renovation, vowed to rebuild the Pentagon as good as new, perhaps even better than new, even replicating the historic limestone facade of the Pentagon. Was built during World War II, originally built in 16 months as part of the build-up to World War II. The Pentagon now has let the first contract, $145 million, to a local Virginia firm to put it back together. As they went through and showed us some of the pictures inside the building, they noted that in the new section, the blast-resistant windows did not shatter, even the ones right near where the plane went in, while in the old section of the Pentagon that had not yet been renovated, some of those windows had broken. And people I talked to here who were in the offices with those new shatter-resistant windows said they thought they saved their lives. There was also a sprinkler system and many other modern features in the renovated part of the building. The Pentagon officials here say this building has not been up to code since 1953. That was the last time it met all the fire and electrical codes, and they're going to change that now as part of the renovation. This is, of course, the world's largest government office building. They're going to have to remove approximately 350 million pounds of debris, and they're going to have to demolish the Pentagon down to the concrete columns and floor slabs, and then rebuild a space that's equivalent to more than 2 Empire State Buildings as part of this renovation. It's going to take years, but they say they will do it as quickly as possible and get people back into that building, which they say will be better than new. Aaron?
It's a building, Jamie, you go to work in every day. We were talking, I think it was yesterday afternoon, about the fact that for all of the power of television, television doesn't necessarily do these sorts of things justice, that when you see it firsthand up close in person, not on a 26-inch screen, it is much worse, almost said much more impressive, much worse than ever. Is that your impression as you look at it there?
You know, I was reviewing some of this video that they released today, and sometimes it's the smallest things that really touch you. One of the shots showed a desk with a computer. You could see a bowl of overturned fruit and candy, a pair of eyeglasses on the desk, an Army coin that all survived the blast, right where somebody had died. And when you see that, it really brings home that these were people working at these desks at the time this event happened. And it really does bring home the magnitude of what has happened here. There's the shot, one of the shots I was talking about on the air now, the eyeglasses there on the desk.
And the suddenness of it all.
Exactly. There you see the overturned bowl, and It's also incredible, though, when you think about it, how low the death toll was, considering that in this wedge of the building, this side of the building, nearly 10,000 people work, 5,000 and 10,000.